Recording. Okay, we're good. Good. Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mazel tov to Rabbi Goldvist, Narella on the birth of a baby girl. This week, after we learned about the Kohanim in Mincha Vayikra and about the Levim, last week's parsha, this week's parsha, the Torah spends a great deal of time on the Nesim, the leaders of the tribes of Israel. And it's really one of the longest parshas in the Torah. And the questions on this parsha abound because it's repetitive and seemingly there's no reason to go to such lengths. The Torah could have said, if you wanted, the names of the 12 leaders of the tribes. And then at the end, the Torah makes a sikkum, it makes a summary of everything that they brought anyway. So it could have said that the 12 leaders of the tribes brought this amount, and that was a gift to the Chanukah Samizbeach, and it would suffice for that. Instead, the Torah goes day by day, assigning every day to a different Nasi and stating what his gift was, even though every gift was exactly the same for each of the Nesim. So naturally, the Mefarshim want to deal with this question because Torah obviously wants to communicate something to us here. So there are a few ideas that we can share regarding the matter. The first idea is that the Torah wants to emphasize that there was no one-upsmanship between them. There are many times people come to donate, people come to commemorate, people come to do good things, but their ego gets in the way. So if this guy gave this amount, I'm going to give more. I'm going to show I'm better than he. So as far as fundraising is concerned, that's wonderful. But as far as midos tovos, good character traits, that's not nice. Try and show up somebody. And here you had the 12 Nesim, each of whom is wealthy and powerful in his own right. And they each brought exactly what the other one brought. Not more, not less. To show that they were not in it for the ego. They were not in it for what they, so to speak, could derive from it. Now, we all know the famous Medrash, Rashi quotes it, that when it came to donating for the construction of the Mishkan, so the Nesim held back. And they said, let's see what the people bring. Let's see how much money they raise. And there undoubtedly will be shortage. It won't be exactly enough, and we'll fill in the rest. They were surprised that the people oversubscribed. V'amalocha Yisodayim, says in the Torah. Vayaviru kol b'machane, and Moshe had to announce, stop bringing. It's oversubscribed. So they panicked because they said the Mishkan is going to be built and it's going to be built without us. Now, throughout the Chumash Bamidbar, we have this concept of Loma Nigora. How can it be that it should happen and we shouldn't have a share in it? So we saw that by Pesach Sheni, that people came to Moshe and they said, we understand on the Korban Pesach, it's made with Nefesh Odom, we're carrying the bones of Yosef. Loma Nigora, how can it be that we should have a Korban Pesach? And the Moshe Shalom agrees. That's the concept of Pesach Sheni. We're going to have it later by the daughters of Slavcha. They came to Moshe Rabbeinu and they said, Loma Nigora, how can it be that we don't have a share in Eretz Yisrael? How can such a thing occur? And the Rebbe Shalom agreed that it came B'no Slavcha Dovros. They're right. They're entitled to a nachala in Eretz Yisrael. So there's a concept in the Jewish world called Loma Nigora. There's a good thing that's happening and I'm not part of it. There's a mitzvah that's happening and I have no share in it. How can that be? So whenever that happens, the Rebbeinu Shalom arranges that they should have a share. So the Nesiim, for instance, brought the Avnei Shoam and the Avnei Milui. They brought the precious stones. Last minute, they jumped in and did that. But now, when it came to the Chanukah Samizbeach, when the Jewish people are going to participate in the dedication of the Mishkan, the dedication of the altar, so then they want to be first. They don't want to be in a position that they should have to say Loma Nigora. How can it be that we're not part of it? So therefore, they volunteered. Not only volunteered, they pushed it. And therefore, the Torah gave them credit, each and every one of them, because of the fact that they accelerated their gift, and that they were the ones that brought it. So on one hand, you have their modesty and not wanting to undermine their fellow Nasi, to give differently or more. And on the other hand, you have their enthusiasm to give, that they wanted to be the first and they wanted it to be called on their name, that it should be obvious that they participated. There's another point that Meforshim discuss, and that is that in the Torah it says, Vayom HaRishon, Vayom HaSheni, Vayom HaShlishi, that why does it need that? It could say V'achrei, and there are other ways that it could have said it. So again, the commentators who looked at the Psukim said that there's a message here. And the message is that every Nasi has his day. That not all days are equal. And a person that can contribute on Tuesday, so if he contributes on Wednesday, it's not quite the same. So each one had his day. The Torah describes the day, the Yom. This day, this is what this Nasi brought. And that's what Chazal say, Shein l'cha adam, shein lo shah. There's nobody in this world that doesn't have his day, his moment of opportunity. And the problem in life is that many times we overlook that moment, or we're unaware that it's there even. And therefore, we don't have the share that we should have. And that's how they divided amongst themselves. Each one felt which day was theirs. So Nashon ben Aminadab, who jumped into the sea, so he's the first one because that's his nature. And the last one is that because he's the Ma'aseh l'kol ha'machanos. He's the last one that gathers everything. Everyone has their task, everyone has their mission, everyone has their time. And the Nesim were able to adjust it amongst themselves so that everyone felt that their contribution was given at the right time and for the right cause. Another point that the whole Mefarshim discuss also, these Nesim, who appointed them? How did you get to be a Nasi? We know how you got to be a Kohen because you're descended from Aaron. We know how you became a Levi, you're descended from the male Levi, from the time of the Edom. But how do you get to be a Nasi? Is there an election? Is there a committee that appoints Nesim? How did it happen? The Torah is not explicit on this. The Torah doesn't tell us exactly how this one was the Nasi and not someone else. And was there competition to be the Nasi? So the Farshim point out an interesting idea that the Nesim, it was a combination of heredity, yichus. To be a Nasi, you have to have the yichus. So, for instance, converts and others, as great as they are, they can't be the Nasi. Just like Melech has a din that is restricted to a certain group of people. So the Nesim were partly hereditary. So where was the hereditary part played out? That came from Egypt. Who were the Shotrim in Egypt? Who were the leaders of the people when they were enslaved? Who absorbed the blows of the Egyptian taskmasters because of the fact that they would not punish their fellow brethren. So that's one piece of the puzzle, so to speak. This group of people, they were the Nesim. But the Mefarshim say it was heaven that chose them. We'll find later when the Sanhedrin was established by Moshe, so you have to have Shivim Skanim, the 70 elders. So he couldn't pick them, they picked 6 from each tribe. That was 72. So how did they decide who or not? So they had a lottery, so to speak. And 2 of them drew blanks, Elder and Maida. And because of that, therefore, the other 70 were the Sanhedrin and they were not. So heaven decides also. So according to Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic thought, even today, if a Jew arises to a position of prominence and leadership, so to speak, they announce it in heaven. It's like they give him an aliyah. Yamod, so-and-so. And therefore, you have this combination of the input of heaven, so to speak, and the studio of heredity of what went before in Egypt, and that combined to create who the Nesiim should be, and it seems that it happened without too much rancor or dispute or disagreement, because we don't see that in the Torah at all. When it'll come with the Meraglim, there it's a different question whom he chose. But there Moshe chose. So there we know who they were. But here the Torah does not choose to inform us, but nevertheless it's something that we should contemplate. And it goes to the heart of Jewish leadership. And Jewish leadership many times is unofficial, it's not official. Nobody elected this person. But the person is the leader. He's the one that pushes it forward. So it has this supernatural, heavenly input as well. Therefore, that's how we have some sense of the greatness of who the Nesiim were. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash Omer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzachos Yisrael, I
think he has the wrong identity because for the meeting, there's no one there except Rabbi Wein. There's nobody attending.